Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. In creative industries today, women make up 60% of professionals, and yet they only hold less than 25% of leadership positions. I've noticed that bold creative approaches can be perceived differently depending on who presents them. What might be celebrated as visionary in one context can be labeled as difficult or too much in another. Let me ask you something provocative. Why do men still predominantly decide what counts as creative excellence? And what potential are we all missing because of this imbalance? Today we'll explore creativity beyond traditional definitions, examining it as your birthright, not just an artistic pursuit. In these turbulent times, tapping into your creative power isn't a luxury. It's an essential for navigating uncertainty and reimagining possibilities. This episode is not just for artists of any sort or for those who have creative in their titles. It is for all of us. So please, come as you are. Welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast, where we do things differently. There's no editing, no polish, just real honest conversations offering practical tools to transform your life from the inside out. For first-time listeners, I focus a lot on mental fitness tools, but today we're examining something equally vital: creativity and who controls its definition. At its core, for me, creativity is simply how spirit flows through you. And I use that word spirit purposefully open. Feel free to replace it with your higher self, God, the universe, goddess, whatever makes sense to you. Creativity is not designated for just creatives like myself and many, many others. Creativity appears when you improvise a meal with next to no ingredients. Creativity appears when you navigate a difficult conversation with empathy or find a fresh approach to a persistent challenge. Creativity appears in the way you make your coffee, the way you get dressed. Creativity is, simply put, a way of life for all of us, not a select few. But somewhere along our collective journey, creativity became gatekept, defined, evaluated, and judged by a narrow segment of society. Today we'll examine what we lose when creativity is filtered through such a limited lens. Let's start by expanding our understanding of creative expression. Elizabeth Gilbert describes creativity in her book, Big Magic, as the relationship between a human being and the mysteries of inspiration. She emphasizes that creativity isn't about perfection, but about having the courage to bring something new into existence. And I just love this definition: the courage to bring something new into existence. And remember, she is not talking about something monumental here, although it could be. She is talking about all of it, and that includes the tiniest of tiny things. Julia Cameron views creativity not as an occupation, but as a spiritual practice, a pathway to recovering our authentic selves. Through her groundbreaking work, The Artist's Way, she helped countless people reconnect with their innate creative power. I did The Artist's Way twice. The first time in my very early 20s, and the impact of the 12-week guided course was profound. Doechii has also spoken publicly of doing the course when she hit a creative block in 2019. She said, "Sometimes when I'm creatively flowing, I feel a resistance, like there's a cap or a limit. It's as if the creative spirit within me wants to break free, and I find myself holding back. It's fear." The book's exercises, like daily writing and artist dates, help Doechii confront these blocks and reconnect with her creative self. These visionaries understand that creativity transcends outcomes. It's about the process of engagement. It's about having the courage to do stuff in the world, in your world, no matter how big or small. It's not about being recognized as the best. It's about becoming fully expressed. This is important to realize. It's the process more than it is the outcome or product. What about your own experience? When last did you feel that spark of creative energy? Was it while making something with your hands, solving a complex problem at work, finding a new approach to a relationship challenge, finding a new formula on Excel? Creativity lives in these everyday moments. Yet society has conditioned us to believe only certain expressions count. Definitions which are largely shaped by a pretty narrow group of people and their experiences. What if your inborn, your inherent, natural creativity is exactly what the world needs right now? What if the unique way you approach challenges, tasks, your work, your relationships, or self-expression contains the wisdom we're all waiting for? Now, let's examine creativity as a craft, something we develop and refine throughout our lives. Erykah Badu, singer, songwriter, record producer, and actress, and all-round amazing human being, once said about her creative process, "I'm not trying to be different, I'm just being myself." This simple statement captures the essence of authentic creative expression. Genuine creativity emerges when we honor what naturally flows through us, not from attempting to fit other people's expectations. Another of my favorites is the spectacular stage designer, Es Devlin. And she describes her creative process as existing in the space between confusion and clarity. This beautifully articulates and acknowledges that creativity requires both structure and freedom, discipline and spontaneity. And here's where I challenge another creativity myth: that it's purely spontaneous, striking like lightning when inspiration appears. Any professional creative knows this isn't true. Creativity means showing up consistently, even during uninspired periods. For me, creativity as craft means investing in my unique voice, learning established principles so I can intentionally depart from them, understanding traditions to meaningfully transform them. It involves developing technical skills while maintaining the courage to break away when your heart calls you to. And sometimes what emerges looks mediocre. Sometimes it looks inspired, and sometimes it looks crap. But that doesn't matter. Showing up is what matters. But here's where we must pause and question. Who established these principles? Who determines which traditions matter? Who defines skilled versus unskilled creativity? Who gets to say what's on trend and what's outdated? Who decides what gets funded, celebrated, published, or produced? And who gets to decide if our work is good, good enough, rubbish, or excellent? Who holds that decision-making power? The answers to these questions shape not just creative industries, but our entire cultural conversation. They determine which voices influence our collective imagination and ultimately our shared future. These answers matter more than you may realize because they impact our self-worth and how we ultimately show up in the world. And it takes courage not to give a shit. Let's address it directly. Why, in 2025, do creative leadership positions remain predominantly male? Why do men still largely determine what constitutes worthy creativity? And I'm not just making this up. In the UK, almost 75% of creative leadership roles, executive creative directors, head of creative departments, or creative directors, are held by men, according to the 2024 IPA census. In the US, women hold 60% of entry-level roles in creative fields, but only 29% of leadership positions, according to McKinsey and the Women Business Collaborative. Women CEOs account for only 9% of executives in the Russell 3000 and 10.4% in the Fortune 500, with even lower representation in creative industries like media, entertainment, and advertising. McKinsey also found that women are 19% more likely than men to be promoted to their first management role, creating what they call a broken rung that limits progression into senior creative leadership. After decades in creative leadership, I've witnessed this dynamic repeatedly. And it seems to happen with more frequency to women over 40 and definitely to women over 50. This isn't about diminishing male creativity in the least. I have worked with many exceptional male creatives. But it is about recognizing that when one perspective dominates decision-making, we all lose something essential. Different lived experiences naturally produce different creative approaches, not better or worse, just different and equally valuable. When we limit who defines excellence, we restrict the range of problems we can solve and the ways we approach them. I want to acknowledge something important. As a white woman, I can speak to gender disparity from direct experience, but I observe that barriers are significantly higher for women of color. Their creative contributions have been systematically undervalued throughout history, an important and undisputed reality. Toni Morrison revolutionized literature by writing authentically from Black female experience. She challenged fundamental assumptions about which stories matter. She once stated, "If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it." This exemplifies what happens when people excluded from creative leadership reclaim their power. They create what they know must exist. The crucial question becomes, what potential breakthroughs never emerge because they don't match established definitions of valuable creativity? What solutions to our most pressing challenges remain undiscovered? This matters beyond fairness in creative industries. It affects which problems get prioritized, which solutions get implemented, and ultimately what kind of world we collectively create. Industries dominated by a single perspective inherently lack the diversity of thought needed to solve complex problems like climate change and political polarization. Challenges that require multi-dimensional thinking that is only possible through truly diverse creative leadership. And sadly, we've created such a restrictive definition of what constitutes diversity that we're still missing crucial perspectives. So how do you reclaim your creative power, regardless of your identity or position? And how do you reclaim your power, even if you do not work in the creative industries? First, recognize that your creativity requires no external validation to be valuable. It matters simply because it's yours. It's your unique way of channeling inspiration into the world. This sounds simple, but it's profoundly difficult in a world that constantly asks us to prove our worth through external metrics. You can be a mother making a simple meal, and that can be and is a creative expression. Second, find your creative community, your people who value your perspective. You may find them outside mainstream spaces or traditional power structures, but they're searching for exactly what only you can create. Sometimes this means looking beyond conventional creative circles to find people who truly get what you're trying to express. Third, build creative confidence through consistent practice. This connects directly to the mental fitness tools we've explored in previous episodes. Apply the tiny promises approach. Commit to just 15 minutes of creative practice daily. Track your wins rather than your misses. Use the kind witness technique when self-doubt appears. Remember that creativity and mental fitness are intimately connected. Suppressing your creative expression cuts you off from a vital source of healing. This explains why practices like Julia Cameron's morning pages are so transformative. They create space to hear yourself without judgment. Chris Martin from Coldplay recently spoke about the power of writing every morning and then burning those pages. To paraphrase what he said, every morning I write down whatever is on my mind, worries, dreams, random thoughts, and then I burn the pages. It's a way to let go, to clear out the clutter and make room for new ideas and creativity. This practice is exactly what Julia Cameron suggests in the morning pages, minus the burning. But she does say it's critical not to go back and read what you wrote. Just let it be. Don't judge. Finally, release comparison and embrace your honest expression. Your creativity doesn't need to look like anyone else's to be valuable. In fact, the most powerful contributions come precisely from what makes your perspective uniquely yours. The defining issues of our generation resist old solutions and demand creative approaches that break from traditions. These approaches, which often prioritize regeneration over extraction, collaboration over domination, have frequently been dismissed precisely because they challenge established power structures. And that's exactly what makes them essential right here and right now. As we come to the end of this episode, remember this. Your creativity isn't just for personal fulfillment. It's your unique contribution to a world urgently needing new ways of thinking, of being, and relating. When we restrict who defines creativity, we limit our collective capacity to reimagine our future, a future filled with beauty, wonder, and awe. And that limitation is something none of us can afford, not now and not ever. I invite you to commit to one small creative act this week. It needn't be artistic. It might be approaching a problem differently, expressing yourself honestly in a challenging conversation, or simply viewing your environment with fresh curiosity. Let's start a creative revolution by sharing this episode with anyone needing this reminder of their creative potential and power. And please take a moment to rate this podcast. For more creative inspiration in between episodes, visit my YouTube channel for bite-sized insights that fuel your creative confidence and mental fitness in ways you may not expect. What comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, with conviction, clarity, and hope for a more creatively inclusive world. This comes straight from my heart to yours.